How do you like your coffee?
Black, please.
Sure, you got it. So Brian, thank you for joining us here at Realize 2025.
Thank you, Ophir. I appreciate the opportunity to be here because first and foremost, Accenture is one of WalkMe's largest clients. We use WalkMe every day across 60 applications, over 130,000 employees. And we don't think of WalkMe as only a digital adoption platform. We actually view it as a strategic business enabler. And it's that experience that informs how we go to market with WalkMe as well. And it's specifically what has actually informed what we call our WalkMe First approach.
So tell us a little bit more about that WalkMe First approach. What does it really mean in today's market and for Accenture?
You know, WalkMe created the digital adoption platform category, but the market's continued to evolve. And so when we think about WalkMe First, it's not just about adoption. It's actually how we see our clients starting to realize the value from their technology investments. It's about how technology is driving a fundamental reinvention of how work is done and the resulting reshaping of the workforce. And it's also around how processes are performing and how people are using those systems. And we believe all of that is instrumental in WalkMe First. And so it shifts the conversation. Instead of just thinking about how you prepare for go live, it actually is around how you continuously activate the organization. It shifts you from static training to actually thinking about real-time performance. And it shifts you from usage metrics to actually insight-driven orchestration. And that's only possible with WalkMe, and it becomes even more important in an age of agentic AI.
So I'm happy you brought up agentic AI because that's a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I'm very excited about it, and I agree with you. I think as we think about humans and AI working together, it's really going to be important to have that orchestration layer that you talked about.
Yeah, one of the things that in Accenture's 2025 Tech Vision, one of the things that we are predicting is that by 2030, we're actually going to see more AI agents using enterprise systems than humans. And so if you think about that environment, it's no longer about just process design. It's no longer around just designing a user experience for humans. It's actually creating an ecosystem that actually allows collaboration between humans and agentic AI. And that's what's most important around how you orchestrate work across those two groups. And what continuous activation and real-time guidance does is it actually allows you to actually optimize across and ensuring that we're ready for that future. And that's why we think WalkMe First is very differentiated, because it guides both humans and agents, and it optimizes that interaction layer connecting both people, process, and technology.
Got it. So in Hebrew we say, let's talk tachlis, which means let's get to the brass tacks. Can you tell us a little bit about that framework of WalkMe First approach?
Yeah, we think about WalkMe First as in terms of 5 key principles. The first of those is start with WalkMe. And this was something that it actually took my teams a lot of effort to really think about, is how do we shift left? How do we bring WalkMe out of the prepare for go live phase of a large transformational program to actually starting to enable in design? So you ask yourself, as we're making design decisions, can we explain this field with a smart tip? Can we reduce this form with automation? Can we validate this data before it goes wrong? And so that principle enables us to say, guide. The second principle would be guide from day one. How do we actually embed WalkMe in design, build, and test, not just post go live? You embed it in pre-configured solutions as you think about in the design process. You actually use it to enable how you're actually starting to think about test and getting real insights into how users are going to use the system. And then you use those insights to actually prepare ahead of go live afterwards. Third principle is capture behavior in real time. If you think about what adoption meant prior to digital adoption platforms, and now as it continues to evolve, it no longer means assessing adoption or readiness in terms of how many people are using the system or how many transactions. We're getting real insights into how people are actually performing in the system, and you compare it, you add that to other insights from process mining and others, and it gives you an entirely different set of almost behavioral telemetry that now you can act on. And it's before go live, not after go live. The fourth is intervene proactively. So with WalkMe, there's also, again, back to my WalkMe First approach, I believe one of the most underappreciated elements of WalkMe is WalkMe Workstation. It actually gives you the opportunity to provide behavioral nudges and direct, I call it targeted engagement, both pre and post go live as well with employees, and actually providing the information that they are going to need ahead of time, as well as actually providing reinforcement afterwards. And then finally, as the fifth principle, run activation as a product. And this truly is something that our clients are thinking very, very differently around. You used to think about it as training. And while I know that you've been talking about setting up a center of expertise around WalkMe for a long time, I'm just now seeing clients start to understand the real value or the importance of doing that in order to unlock value after go live. So you actually think about it in terms of setting up that COE. That COE builds its capability and capacity through the program. And then after the program, you actually have a live center of capability or expertise that actually allows you to bring insights not only from WalkMe, but also from other applications as well, all together, that actually then you can use and reinforce. And that's exactly back to what you heard Sarah and her team talking about in the beginning. That's exactly what we've done with Accenture.
So just to be clear, you mentioned process discovery and other tools. A WalkMe First approach doesn't just mean WalkMe alone, right?
Yeah, WalkMe First means start with WalkMe. And then, yes, depending on your specific industry, depending on your specific workforce, you might actually need to think differently around additional things you need to add. So for example, life sciences. I work a lot in life sciences. WalkMe has a very large presence in life sciences. One of the things that we know is that in a validated environment, there may be additional things that you actually need to do to prepare that workforce. But that doesn't mean you don't start with WalkMe, and that doesn't mean that WalkMe actually doesn't ensure that performance in real time. In manufacturing, a lot of people ask how WalkMe would be used on a shop floor. There might be site-specific processes that need to be covered in addition to WalkMe First. But again, WalkMe reduces the heavy lift when you think about any of these specific workforces.
So Brandon, you laid down that framework for a WalkMe First approach, but how does that WalkMe First approach fit into that larger SAP ecosystem now that WalkMe was acquired by SAP?
It's a great question. I actually believe SAP's acquisition of WalkMe has fundamentally elevated the role of user experience, the role of bringing adoption and continuous activation into the flow of work. And it enables you to operate in an ecosystem that is, I would say, much more robust and larger when you think about the collaborative architectures around SAP these days. We actually think about it as part of the integrated tool chain, also something that SAP is talking a lot about these days. And you think about the combination of bringing WalkMe into SAP S/4HANA. You think about using the insights with SAP Signavio, along with LeanIX, and then specifically WalkMe. And then if you think about how you also do that in the context of SAP Joule and actually starting to enhance AI-powered user support at the same time. So you bring all those things together, and I think the potential for WalkMe ahead of us is significant. It's not just about adoption, it truly is around adoption evolving to continuous activation, optimization, and performance in real time. It actually is the potential for everything we've just talked about. It fundamentally shifts how you think about design. It thinks about differently around how you build, how you test, but it also provides a foundation layer for agentic AI. So one of the things that, if you think about how many of our clients, especially in the SAP space, they've been treating data, both master data and transactional data, as an asset for a number of years now. And while there's still work to be done there, it's quite mature. But in the WalkMe Signavio space, actually developing a deeper understanding of, I won't call it data, I would say our appreciation of that content. How are people actually using the systems? How should and are processes actually performing? And how is your architecture performing? One of the things that I know SAP talks publicly about regarding their acquisition of WalkMe is that when they acquired Signavio back in 2021, one of the things that they've discovered is that of the insights that they have discovered via Signavio, 10 to 15% of those actually have a technical resolution, but 60 to 70% of those require a human to do something differently, which is exactly where WalkMe comes in. And so the value of this integrated tool chain and the potential that you have now that SAP's acquisition is significant.
So that point about the human element is super interesting and important. We see it all the time, of course. If you think about the only constant in change, now we're rolling out generative AI, and a few years from now it can be a different type of, a disruptive technology coming up. But the only constant is the human element, and humans are creatures of habit, right? And that typically is that last mile where you see that technology isn't being adopted or the ROI isn't extracted. And that was a great comment. So that was a great conversation, Brian. Any kind of concluding thoughts on your end?
I would just echo a few of the points that we hit on. One, WalkMe First. I do fundamentally believe that WalkMe First is how we move from an era of just simply thinking about adoption as a continuous, but primarily, as many of our clients would think of it, a one-time event, to continuous adoption. I think that's incredibly important. I also think in the spirit of moving into a world of agentic AI, it's also very important to move WalkMe and how you think about WalkMe and adoption and activation from the very beginning of your program. Because at the end of the day, WalkMe First has the potential to reduce risk, to accelerate ROI, to power performance, to enable sustainable change. And we believe that every transformation should start with one question, and that's, well, how will people, back to your people point, how will people experience this in the flow of their work? And that's the question WalkMe First answers.
Could not agree more. So again, thank you for joining us today, Brian. That was a great conversation, and great seeing you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.